Yeah, you need it. Okay. If you can give me the actual Quran. I don't know how to spell that name.
FOR3 and X.
No.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So no, this is a boys'
Yeah.
Get them all settled down. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for being on time and coming early. If we can all get you guys to take a seat. Alhamdulillah, we have Brother Aman reciting Quran for us to start the session today. Welcome him with a loud salawat, please.
Actually, read off my phone. I think it's easier. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوم ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على الأكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وهل أنزل الرحمن من شيء أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم ولا يمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم أن أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجلا يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرهم وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني زل في ضلال مبين إني آمنت بيدكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعدهم من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآيات لهم الأرض الميتات وأنهارها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملت أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآيات لهم الليل نسلخ من النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناها منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآيات لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في فلك مشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صارخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أندعم من لو يشاء الله أدعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الموعد وإن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يقسمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يرون من يبعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة يوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة وما يدعون سلام قول من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أزل منكم جبل كافرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسكناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي لها إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللنا لهم فمنه راكبهم ومنه يأكلون ولهم فيها وما شارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلكم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند منصرون فلا يحزنك قوله أنما نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقنا من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقا كالمن العظام وهي الرميم قل هو الذين أنشأ أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر أكثر نارا فإذا أنتم توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو خلاق عليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يكون فيكون وسبحان ربك الذي ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون الله Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim.
Jazakallah ahsantum. Jazakallah ahsantum. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome everyone to our insightful workshop titled Al-Qalb al-Azhar, a discussion on the ailment of the heart. We are truly honored to have Syed Asad Jafri guiding us through this journey of self-discovery and purifications. Many of us know Syed Asad Jafri. He's a native of Toronto, Canada, and has a Bachelor of Computer Science degree. He worked for IBM and thereafter moved to Iran and entered the Islamic Seminary of Qom, Iran, and completed his degree in Quranic science. In the realm of Islamic teachings, the heart qalb stands as the core of self-purification and growth. Our collective journey involves self-guarding this center, ensuring its purity amidst the complexity of life. Through this workshop, we will dive into the factors that lead the heart astray, tarnishing its essence. Our goal is to recognize and rectify this deviation, embarking on a journey of healing. The schedule for today's session as follows: 4 to 5:15, we have session 1. Then we have a short tea snack break for 15 minutes, and the exploration continues with a session 2 from 5:30 to 6:15, followed by a 10-minute break. Refreshment and snacks will be available. And at 6:35, we embark on session 3, lasting until 7. And remember, this day is not merely about listening. A dedicated Q&A slot from 7 to 8 p.m. grants us the opportunity to further deepen our understanding and engage in meaningful discussion. Once again, welcome to our workshop. Let us embark on this journey of self-discovery and healing together. Welcoming again Syed Asad Jafri with the loudest of your salawat.
Hold what down? Oh. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. All right, all right, all right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. صلى على محمد وآل محمد, please. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, all of you are doing well. May Allah accept your gham and your grief for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the month of Safar. An honor for me to be here at Jafri. I was here many years ago for a weekend Majlis dates, and it's nice to be back here again for this discussion and this topic. As was mentioned in the intro, very well put, that this is one of those topics that requires a lengthy conversation. But just looking at the state of our communities, our families, ourselves right now, got to go back and sort of visit to find out where we're lacking in all of this. We have sometimes everyone else figured out, we don't have ourselves figured out. We are quick to hand out prescriptions for everybody else. When it comes to ourselves, we don't know where to start. And a lot of it is that while you are waiting for others in your life to change, your spouse, your parent, your child, I don't know, your loved one, the reality is that you only have control over yourself for change. We have to sort of regain that control and not relinquish it every single time. That until they change, Mulana, then I will change myself. The reality is that we'll be waiting our whole life, unfortunately. So part of that conversation is to understand, are there factors inside of us that is blocking my progression towards God or not? So what I don't want today in my very brief workshop, this workshop is usually about 8 to 9 hours, so we won't cover everything of my topics, but we'll cover enough to get at least a conversation within yourselves. I don't want you to look at the content today and think, oh my God, this person should have been here and that person should have been here. Or I wish they were here to hear, oh my God, I know 10 people like that. We are, or I am talking to you today. And I'm talking to myself up here today. Let's leave everybody else out of it. Let's be a little bit selfish and ask myself, do I have these situations inside of me or not? Okay? All right. This is not a majlis. So please, speak up, put up your hand, yell things out, by all means, please. I want to be more of a dialogue. This is my second of four programs today in Atlanta, so I could use a little bit of a break. So we're trying to now cover a little bit of this, not everything, but you can see that initially we'll go through what the qalb actually means in Islam. Okay, and then we'll look at, these are various ailments, diseases, sicknesses that a lot of us have inside of us. Now, a lot of my content comes from Imam Khomeini's book of 40 hadith. It's online, it's on alislam.org, it's translated very, very well. A lot of what I have here is in that 40 hadith book, okay? So after we talk about what the qalb is, we'll look at ostentation, otherwise known as the riyah. This over-exaggeration of piety sometimes for the world to see how pious I am. Okay? That's a whole talk in Islam. Number 3 is the idea of narcissism and their ultimate demise. A lot of us now have identified through these buzzwords now that I do actually have a narcissist in my life. You're already nodding your heads, hilarious. That I can't shake. It's not like I can't cut them off, right? Their blood, their family, sometimes they live in my house, right? I can't shake them. What do I do, right? But more importantly, am I that narcissist? Am I displaying that behavior or not? And then we talk a little bit about envy and hasad. If we get to anger, fine. And I know for sure number 6 won't happen. But the idea of khawf and rija, or a little bit of this idea of desire and hope. Okay? But these first 3 or 4 are crucial. Crucial, inshallah. Let's get through this. Okay. So the introduction, I think he already read. I'm not sure if someone gave him my slides or he's sneaking into my laptop, but half of what he said was already up here. Literally, the qalb holds such an important role in Islam that really the tarbiyat, the nurturing, the nature, everything, the cleansing of the human being resides at the qalb. That's command central. Everything that is exported from the qalb is behavior, is akhlaq, is disposition, is what you name it. If we can figure out how to purify this heart, everything else will follow. Okay? Rotten fruit comes from weak roots or sometimes from broken branches. You can cut those fruits all you want, but until you tackle the actual source of the problem, then it's not going to get fixed. Okay? Is my time up? No. Oh, sorry. Oh, बहुत शुक्रिया भाई साहब. Thank you, sir. Wah, kya baat hai. Thank you. All right. Okay. So ensuring this center remains pure and void of deviation is a lifelong journey of ours. This is not an overnight pill. Let's move away from the idea that can you give me a taweez, can you give me a dua, can you give me a surah, can you give me a tasbih? I can wake up to be a less angry person, a less jealous person. I can become sincere overnight. Okay? This is not like, these are not overnight pills. This is a lifelong journey for us to go through a self-purification and ta'aleem and tarbiyat process. Okay? So let's examine a little bit of what these factors are, inshallah. Okay? First of all, where did this qalb azhar terminology come from? Let's start on that. Okay? Sorry, my slides, I know. So let me give you a little bit of background about my slides. Okay, so I'm going to attend a lot of my classes, so she knows online that I belong in the 80s and 90s. So I belong to a PowerPoint world. You're laughing at me, I know. Okay, I don't know Canva or all these great things you guys know, you young guys. So my PowerPoint belongs in the museum of PowerPoints. Okay, very old school, I understand. I always get someone telling me, please, hey, let me fix your slides. Okay, this is the best I can do. Right? It's very wordy, I know. It's an eyesore, but just look past how it looks at the content, inshallah. Okay? It's like me. Look past the ugliness and just focus on what I'm trying to say, inshallah. Okay? Now, Imam Sadiq, alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says in Usul al-Kafi, there are 4 types of hearts. Inna al-quluba arba'a. There are 4 types of hearts. And very beautiful, profound descriptions of our different hearts that only the Ahl Bayt can give. He says the first one is al-qalbu fihi nifaq wa iman. It's that heart that in it there is both hypocrisy and faith. That's the first type of heart. Okay? And he describes each one. Then he gives certain names to the other 3. The second one, al-qalb mankus, and he'll describe what that means in a moment. Al-qalb matbu, and of course, al-qalb azhar. Okay? He says, for the one now that is known as azhar, he starts off there, it's the hearts of a mu'min. Okay? Azhar is the masculine to the zahra feminine. Okay? Which means light, essentially. Okay? So we are trying to develop a heart inside of us that now delivers this light to others. Okay? Now in coordination with the verse of the Quran where Allah says you were spiritually dead, فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ. We gave you hayat, we gave you life, and we gave you nur, we gave you light. You take that light, yamshi bihi fin nas, you walk with the people, such that your heart is so illuminated that not only do you illuminate your darkness, but also the path of others as well. Okay, we've seen people, right? It's contagious. And sometimes when you're around them, you become, for the brief moment you're around them, you become actually more faithful. You become more pious around them. They have this energy that's highly contagious, right? That's that qalb azhar. It's kind of like, it's leaving your sort of internal kingdom and shining into other people's internal kingdom as well. Okay? Now, qalb mankus is that inverted heart. Mankus means to invert something on its head. You take for example, you take a glass and you invert it, right? That is the heart of a hypocrite. Al-qalb matbu is a heart of someone who's a munafiq. And those are a little bit outside of our discussions. But needless to say, we are people now who have multiple states of our hearts. Okay? And you judge the state of your heart by your actions alone. Okay? So, where have we seen this word heart used in various ways in the Quran? Before I get to the actual good stuff, let's understand these 3 main categories of the hearts. Okay, number one. There are moments where the Quran refers to the qalb as your aql, as your intellect. Okay? Surah Qaf, for example. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لِذِكْرِ لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ الشَّهِيدُ. Indeed, there is truly a reminder for him or for her, for them, who has a heart or gives ear while they are heedful, meaning they listen to those things that they give advice to. Here, Tafsir says that Allah is using the qalb to mean the intellect, somebody who is roshan fikr, who has a little bit of a higher mentality, who has more logic, more rationale. And today, nowadays, you can see that sometimes the illogical is being presented as the logical to us. That's a problem. So my focus across this whole Ayam Azar, wherever I've gone, I've tried to sort of waken up or awaken the logical powers inside of our kids, where now they're able to see things that are illogical as just that, as illogical. Or B, it's referred to as the soul, right? In a very famous dua in Surah Ali Imran, where I recite this in my qunut almost every single salat, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. Do not make our hearts swerve. Don't let zagh enter our hearts بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, after you've already guided us. Okay, so it's very possible that you've been guided now, you've been raised to be a mu'min, a believer, but that's not enough. Allah says it's possible that even after all that guidance, you may swerve off the path. And we have countless examples in our families, in our community, in history actually, where people now have been given this tawfiq to follow God, and they have denied that. But C is the biggest one that you and I have to understand. There is a fluctuating entity inside of ourselves. We fluctuate as people. There are moments where I run towards salat. There are moments where I have to be dragged towards salat. There are moments where I want the Quran to be read, and I'll read it, and then there are moments where I check to see how many pages left in the surah. There are moments where I want to serve Allah. There are moments where I can't serve Allah. Okay? There are moments where I have so much hope in the deen. There are others where I have a moment where, like, what are we doing in this deen right now? That fluctuating nature comes from the actual word qalaba in Arabic, which means to fluctuate. Ya muqallib al-qulub, we call Allah, the fluctuator of hearts. Okay? So that entity inside of you that you feel like I'm bouncing between two realities sometimes is exactly what the qalb is. Okay? The difference is that while sometimes we go rising up and crashing down, we got to maintain a little bit of that middle ground where, yes, we're going to fluctuate, guys. Your heart isn't always going to be in Bain al-Haramain, isn't always going to be the tawaf of the Kaaba. I want to recapture that moment where I was in Hajj Syed or the Arba'in walk or this and that, and sometimes you can't. You can't recapture the nights of Qadr. Those are always meant for you to sort of up and down, but maintain that middle ground. Sometimes we go way high, and then we come crashing down afterwards sometimes. Right? The hijab comes off, we deny God, we don't pray namaz, we announce atheism. Hold on one second. And all the way up now where everybody is shaitan and I'm the only angel and this and that, every second word is mashallah. Calm down, homie. Hold on one second. Wait. Let's find a middle ground. Right? This lack of balance sometimes, these extremes we go through, is all based on the fact that we are a people of qalb. We have this fluctuating nature, okay? So that was quickly. This is a very quick synopsis of what's happening. A lot of colors here, just bear with me. This is us in a nutshell inside of us. That's a map inside of you happening right now. Okay? The blue being the God side, the red being shaitan side, the purple being the battlefield. Okay? And you can see exactly now, again, I could spend the whole day on this, but I won't. We have the evil commanding self, that nafs amara, the tranquil self, nafs mutma'inna, and the nafs lawama, the reproaching self. That self where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have, why did I? Do it again, oh, I shouldn't have, why did I do it? Oh, regret, regret, regret. Deceive, believe, that seesaw that we're on sometimes is right here, this battleground. And you can see heart, body, and mind, all three aspects are right in the middle of this battle. Okay? And the refinement of character can either go down, where now I become satanic in my character, or go up, where I become godly in my character. But all of it resides in this battlefield, where the heart is one of the main battles we have inside of us. Okay? you give me a 5-minute warning, Sister Zamana, when I'm approaching? Okay, so 5:30? Fantastic, okay. But if I find you guys are falling asleep or you're actually, mashallah, asleep, then we'll end it a little bit early, okay? I can read a crowd. You're amazed what I can see up here, so be careful, please. Hide behind a tall guy, you'll be all right. All right. Okay, so this is what we're happening. Downward pull towards worldly distractions, upward towards being the servant of Allah. And you can see literally all of us, myself included, we go through the red, the blue, the blue, the red, the red, the blue, the blue, the red. Okay? And that's partly because we have shaitan outside of us, dunya outside of us, we have the society outside of us, we also have a nafs inside of us, which is a different conversation altogether. But this is not my thing. I've sourced it here somewhere. It's not my diagram, but it does capture very well what we are up against sometimes. Okay? All right. So, that was in a nutshell what a qalb is. Okay, let's get to the actual good stuff now. The disease of riyah. This idea that I need to make sure that I present myself to be a very pious being for the world to see. Okay? How I am inside of my home, behind closed doors, no live feed, no one to sit there and watch, those kind of things, that's different. When everyone is watching at the Jaffari Center, or I'm live feed on the mimbar, for example, the hall is packed, for example, not a head is going crazy. At that moment, right? Yes. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I said we are somebody who can actually go through all 4 hearts in one day sometimes. So we have inverted hearts. Inverted hearts is where something isn't accepted. Yeah, so nifaq has its categories, right? So there are moments where, people like me live a life of nifaq, let's say. We say one thing, we do another, right? I believe in God, but sometimes my actions don't really show that, right? Then there are moments where, I'm given knowledge, it's in front of me, but because my heart isn't ready for it, right, it doesn't go anywhere. Okay? The example I often give is that my time in Qom, I remember, one year when I was learning Farsi, it began to snow in Qom. It never snows in Qom. Qom's a desert. I mean, there's winters there, right? It gets cold. I mean, there's ski lodges in Tehran, and people go skiing in the mountains in Mashhad, but Qom doesn't really get snow. One day, true story, we're learning Farsi in the first 6 months of my Hausa life, and we see these big snowflakes coming down from the sky. Now, I'm from Toronto. That's like an everyday occurrence for us, right? Not a big deal, right? We ski ourselves to work, as you guys probably think here in Atlanta. Live in igloos, and yeah. But who hasn't seen these are some of the Pakistani guys. Oh, my God. These guys left the classroom halfway through a class, and they grabbed their cups. I kid you not. And they just started catching their. Now imagine one guy comes out and his cup is inverted. So he's trying to catch, the snow is there, the cup is there, he is there, everything is there, but his cup was inverted. Now they go back and they compare snowflakes. But the problem is the guy says that my cup was empty. It was inverted. Right? Sometimes everything is there for you to really accept things, but the heart isn't quite ready to accept it. A lot of my parents in the audience, I tell you all the time, tarbiyat, nurturing, is give and take. You've given it, but are they open to take it or not? Because I talk to parents who have 25, 30-year-old children, and the kid didn't quite turn out the way that the parent wanted to be, and then they'll say, where did I go wrong? What did I do? I'm the world's worst mother. I go, wait a second now. You've given everything. Did they take the things you gave them or not? After a while, you put your hands up and say, look, I've given you everything now. The rest is, as a mother, father, I'm praying for you. But now this is you now to make sure that you're open for it. Khair. So that's what, so we go through it all the time. Okay. So, riyah. One of the biggest, if not the most deadly diseases we have of our hearts is this obsession that we have to make sure others look at me as pious. the extent that some people go through, Ya Allah, to make sure, right? And the problem is that they're working on the outside, it appears to be for God, putting forth all sorts of effort, actually spending their money, but all for someone else to sit there and say, shabash, shabash. The talia and the hand and the clapping and the shu'rat and the fame and the this and that and blah, 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 right? All of that is for somebody else, not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So we'll go through causes, we'll go through why that is, why do we feel the need to do that? Okay, now it's become into social media now, of course, right? We'll post something just to make sure somebody now sees me as someone I'm not. Okay? So the problem is, if you ask me now, this is my content, not Imam Khomeini's, there's three things right now crippling us at our core, especially my young guys in the audience. Number one is that there is this instantly gratifying society that we live in. Everything is instant. Okay? If it's blue check marks, I expect a reply within 3 seconds. I know you read my message, bro. I know you read it. Why are you ghosting me? Don't leave me on red now, as you guys would say. Reply to me, right? So you hit there and hit question marks. I get that all the time. Mulana, I need istikhara done. Meanwhile, I'm in the air. I come back, I have 8 question marks. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, let me just land on the ground first, and inshallah I'll get to you, right? So this instantly, right? And we want that. We want that benefit right now. Okay, if I've cut out sugar for a week, I want that scale to move. It's not going to move. I'm going to grab a tub of ice cream and a spoon, not a bowl, just a spoon in the tub of ice cream, and put those calories back on. If I don't see it. And sometimes we think that's how it is in terms of spirituality. I've been praying namaz. One guy, true story, I kid you not, one brother said to me that I've been praying Fajr for the past 7 days, Mana. That's great, mashallah, wonderful. But I don't see a difference in my life. What were you expecting? Did you want to fly? Did you want to go through walls? Did you want to see my barzakh? What did you want to see? And even that 7 days. This man's in his 40s. What happened to the remaining 39 years? I don't understand. Anyways, so we want this idea that instantly. You said to read Quran, I'm reading the Quran, but there's... So instant, number one. Number two, hollow validation. I need others to validate me. I need others to stamp the approval. I'm pretty, I'm spiritual, I'm skinny, I don't have a big nose, I have a great voice, I'm a wonderful person. All these things, stamp me, stamp me, stamp me. Right? So I'll take 30 selfies, choose the best one, post it up on my social media, and wait for the comments. When there's no comments, you're like, oh my God, I chose the wrong selfie. What happened? Where are my comments? We actually go and message people, can you please comment on my picture? Tell me I'm lying. Okay? So this hollow validation. We do the same thing when it comes to my spirituality. I want someone else to tell me that my hijab is impeccable, that my qirat is amazing, that, you know, if no one else is there for Jamaat namaz, mashallah, brother, you're always there for Jamaat namaz. So yeah, I am, he's right. I'm a great namazi. You feel good about yourself. You validated me that I'm now a great namazi. That's hollow, I'm sorry. It comes from a person who's fallible. It feels good. It's great to do tashweek and encouragement, but ultimately, Allah says, I've already validated you. Right? وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've honored the human being. That's enough validation. And then, of course, this disease of people pleasing. Okay? This idea that log kya kahenge, ya Allah. Right? We live our life, we make our decisions, lifelong decisions. We make decisions for others based on people pleasing. What will people say? What will they say? Right? You found a great guy for your daughter found a great guy for her, comes home, says, Mom, Dad, I think this guy's the right guy for me. Perfect. All those criteria Islam says. Taqwa, good family, education, blah, 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 this and that. Check, 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 check. Doesn't belong to a certain village in a certain country. Yeah, he's a great guy, but if I marry you to him, lo kya kahenge? What will people say? And so we move away from a perfectly good situation because of the idea that people might not be pleased with me. Okay, a strong urge to please others, even at an expensive price. Now, a lot of you can say, well, look, Mwana, we live in society, we have to have the people please us, or please with us. I get that. But not at the expense of everything else. When it comes to our worship, when it comes to our spirituality, our focus has to be God. If people are wowed by us in the process, so be it. But my focus is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On top of that, we should know, and we do know, all of you have been burned enough, God knows I have been as well. The same people that are wowed by me today are the same people who are not impressed by me tomorrow. Right? People who are big fans, let's say, for example, this week are the president of the I Hate Asad Jafri Club next week. Allah is who? Ya Sari al-Rida. He's easily pleased. Right? So this is where we're at right now, and this is why we have this constant need now to show people that I am very spiritual. I think I'm too far from it. Okay? Now, some harsh ahadith that we have. I'll get to that in a moment. What is riyah? An excessive display of vanity, an insincere piety for the purpose of attracting attention, admiration, or even the envy of others. I want them to burn in jealousy for me. I want them to sit there, I want them to be envious of me. Okay, I'll show them, for example. All in our worship. When really that worship should only be fi sabilillah, on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at what Imam Sadiq says. Kullu riyain shirkun. Every form of riyah is shirk. Why is it shirk? Because now you're doing it for who? For somebody else. Not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he flat out says, إِنَّهُ مَنْ عَمَلًا لِلنَّاسِ كَانَ ثَوَابُهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ. If you're doing something for the people, expect reward from the people. Don't do it for others and ask God for that reward. You're doing it for God, though, expect the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have countless traditions that tell us on the Day of Judgment, we're given our book of deeds. We'll sit there, we'll look through it, and there's pages and pages like mine that are missing. I'll say, we go to the complaints department on the Day of Judgment. Say, excuse me, sir, there's some pages missing here. On so-and-so date, I went to Jaffari Center in Atlanta. I gave 3 hours of a workshop. Where is that? I did that for you, God. It's like, no, you did that for the Jaffari people in Atlanta. Maybe for, a free ice cream cone or something. That's why you did it. No, but no other reason. Go and get your ice cream cone from them. Don't get it from me, right? So this is a book of deeds that you've done only for me, God will say. If there's pages missing, go ask them that you did it for to fill in those pages. Okay? One who works for the people, his reward lies with them. One who works for God, of course, the reward lies with God. Okay? Again, not for others. Ask yourself. I will ask myself. Okay? Do I do a lot of things so others can be wowed by me? And we'll get to why is it that people are so obsessed with the idea. Okay? Now, of course, there is productive approval. There's addictive approval. I understand. Sometimes you want to know, am I doing this right? Like, that's not riyah. Coming to you, say, am I on the right path here? Say, so many times I get questions from people. I've been doing this. Am I on the right path? In the month of Ramadan, this is what my journal looks. These are my goals. I'm not asking you to sit there and say, oh my God, you're amazing. I want to know legit, am I on the right path or not? That's actually productive. If I'm not on the right path, then change it. Then there are those that are addicted to approval. That ask, well, how was that? Was the food good? Was my speech okay? Do I look okay? Do you see a difference? You're fishing for compliments. Give me a compliment. Come on. And some people are so deep that they don't give you one compliment. Give me something. One compliment. No, that's addictive approval. That second one is a problem. The first one actually is actually very good. So there is a difference between the two, for sure. So far, so good. You guys okay? Any questions, comments? We're good? Yes, sisters? Okay, excellent. All right. Now, let's move towards a solution. First of all, as I said before, this is not an overnight pill. It requires a lot of deep self-diagnosis. When you get to a point that you are going through a self-reflective exercise, you have to ask yourself some really deep-rooted questions that might cause you to go back a little bit and visit old wounds. Why do I need the approval of others? What is the deficiency inside of me that I think their approval might fill? Okay? And that's when people in my generation, I'm in my 40s, we're now, I call it the middle or the sandwich generation. We are still kids to immigrant parents, but now we have kids of our own, for example. Right? We have a lot of trauma inside of us growing up. A lot of trauma. Immigrant parents, Desi parents who didn't quite know how to say, what to say, right? So they said whatever was in their mind. There was no filter from the mind to the mouth, mashallah. Whatever came out, came out. You just take the jab, take the arrow, take the slap. I say, okay. They feel better. And meanwhile, you're like, okay, that's another wound. And later on now, it comes up, it rears its ugly head, where now I'm like, okay, well, my father was never approved or didn't approve of me. Now I need someone else to sit there and tell me that I'm actually a good kid. I never heard it from my parents, for example, or my siblings, for example, or I was bullied in school, for example, or my first cousins, well, I was always the butt of all their jokes. All these things require you to go back and revisit old scars that didn't heal properly. And that's hard. It's very, very hard. But there's a reason why we have, some of us have this obsession with others telling me that I'm good, I'm great, I'm everything. Right? Ask yourself today, why do I need that approval from others? Imam Sadiq, if you enter the deen for the sake of people, you'll exit the deen for the sake of people. It's a profound statement. I am religious, so-and-so can be impressed by me. Eventually, you'll say, you know what? I'm not getting my approval. I'm going to leave the deen because so-and-so aren't impressed with me anymore. The second half of that statement is, if you enter the deen for the sake of Allah, mountains will move. You won't leave the deen whatsoever. In a world that's overly obsessed with glamorization and likes and subscribers and followers, now we're monetizing social media, and there are people who sell their souls out for a few extra bucks here and there. Ask yourself, do I feel the need to do that? We have to strike a balance. I'm not saying it's not important that you have the respect of your colleagues and your peers and your family. It's important that you feel respected by those around you for sure, but not at the expense of everything else. Okay, there's some of you who are trying to climb the ladder of spirituality, you don't get the support around you. There are people who think that you're extreme because you pray 5 times a day. That's extreme for some people. Praying 5 times a day every day is extreme for many people. Right? So sometimes you hide it. There are some of you who don't attend certain functions because there'll be music there, there'll be dancing there, there'll be mingling there, and so you have to make an excuse. I'm sick, I'm not feeling well, right? COVID was great for us, right? Just pop out COVID whenever you want, right? Or my son is positive, so now the whole house is shut down. Meanwhile, you're not going there for legit reasons. But now you have to search for excuses. They're, mashallah, comfortable in their sin. There are people who give me their wedding cards sometimes. Mr. and Mrs. Asad Jafri with family. And then they give me the card and say, this is a card for you, Malana. My daughter's getting married, mashallah. Lekin aap nahi aayenge, I know. You won't come. Why won't I come? Nahi, Malana, I'm up dancing or singing. And I go, then take back your card. I go, aap ke liye ye mahfil nahi hai. It's not for you. I go, it's also not for you, my brother, as well. It's not just me. Flat out telling me, this is your card, but I know you won't come. I always say, my young guys here, some of you are here, at the time of your life where you're looking for spouses, maybe some of you are planning a wedding, I don't know. Always make out your first wedding card to Imam Zamana. And ask yourself, will the Imam come to your wedding? If I won't come to your wedding, imagine the Imam. If you are for sure the Imam will come, then mashallah, go forward. Okay. Enter the deen for the sake of people. Let's be careful. Okay, This is a good one. Let's redefine what makes us happy. A little bit of a conversation. You guys are with me, inshallah? It's almost 5 o'clock. We all have this need to be happy, no doubt about it. We all have a need to be content. We search for moments of contentment in a very, very sometimes draining world, no doubt about that. From young to old. My youth out there right now who are drowning in in mental health issues, my elders who are worried about the generation, my grandparents now who are looking back to their life thinking about, gosh, if only, if only, if only. A lot of us are struggling right now to find moments of happiness, right? That breeze on a very, very hot day. And our first Imam has a very beautiful equation for what true happiness is. And true happiness in Islam is known as sa'ada. You've heard the word Syed before. There are names, actually. People name their kids Syed, right? We refer to Eid al-Adha as Eid al-Sa'id sometimes in the Sunni world. Sa'ada is this term that actually resides in the heart, in the soul. Imam Ali says that you cannot reach that happiness. لا يسعد أحد إلا بإقامة حدود الله. It's a profound statement. That you will never reach the level of sa'ada. You won't be sa'id, truly happy, unless you establish the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Living within the limits of God actually provide happiness for you. A lot of us might think, well, Islam is a lot of do's and don'ts, a lot of rules. Halal, harams, can't do this, can't go here, can't eat this, can't smell this, can't marry this, blah, blah, blah. A lot of don'ts, a lot of no's, very negative. Those limits come from an unlimited source, right? Oftentimes I say that we are people who are, we don't accept limits very well. We don't like limits, okay? We search for a data plan with unlimited data, right? No limits. We rent a car with unlimited mileage, correct? Restaurant says all you can eat, no limits. Russian, $9.99, all you can eat. We don't like limits. A highway, imagine a highway, a freeway you can go on with no limits. You're going 120 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour, no one to stop you, no one to even question you. Imagine one day, 24 hours, no Sharia. Oh my God. KFC and God knows what else, right? Holy smokes. One day, no Sharia. Sounds good, right? Look how many people are smiling, mashallah. I haven't seen you smile all day like that. Smiling, mashallah, no Sharia one day. We don't like limits. And what we don't realize is that our detest for limits is actually a search for the unlimited. Understand that for a moment? Because we don't like limits, we're actually searching for the unlimited. And once we identify the proper unlimited, of course, the capital U being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we'll accept limits from that unlimited. If that makes sense to all of you. There are people in this world that you have seen, celebrities, athletes, you name it, who have wrongly identified the unlimited. Once I get to that salary, once I sign that contract, once I sign a max deal with my team, then that is my bag, as they call it. Get the bag. Once you have the bag, at that moment, then you're set. Get everything you need. But we have countless examples of people who have everything this world has to offer, and somehow it simply isn't enough. From Kate Spade to Robin Williams to Kobe Bryant to Tiger Woods to you name it. What didn't this world have for them? Everything at their feet, it wasn't enough. Chasing women, chasing gambling, for example, suicide here and there. Robin Williams, $20 million a movie with his own belt now hung from the closet, right? Sorry. All these things are there because these people thought, oh my God, I got to this level now, I should be happy, and there's no sa'ada. Then there are people who are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have nothing this dunya really has to offer, but they're content, man. They're happy. I walked the villages of India last December. I went for Fatimiyya in Bangalore, and there were people who would invite me to their house that, very simple home. 1 bedroom for a 5-member family. But content, happy, on top of the world. Not one shikwa, not one shikayat, not one complaint, nothing. You go to a 4,000 square foot house and you feel the heaviness of that house when you walk in. 5 members of the house, but 5 roommates, really. One in that room, one in that quarter, one in this one. Right? So we have to redefine what it is that makes me. We think that maybe others being happy with me will make myself happy with me. Not the case all the time. Right? If I'm able to do my best to live within the hudud of Allah, the limits of Allah, do my best to carry out the sharia, then Allah will now bring you this sense of contentment. عَلَى بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنَّ الْقُلُوبِ. The dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah brings about this contentment in the heart that I can't describe. Some of you pray salat and you wonder, was my salat accepted or not? There has to be a moment after your, not every salat, sometimes your salat, where you feel wonderful about yourself after that salat. You pray Maghrib, you're like, oh, that felt great. You're folding the namaz and you feel good about it. You feel this wholeness about yourself. You feel full with some energy inside of you. Guess what? That's that moment of Syed. That's that sa'ada. Because now, not only on time, but even with huzur qalb, and you prayed properly and you felt great about yourself, that happiness comes because what? You established that prayer properly. Right? You respected the limits of Allah. Allah says, at this time, pray salat, put everything away, and I did, and that felt great. Okay? So we have to ask ourselves, am I different in my ibadat when I am by myself, as opposed to, let's say, at the center when everyone's watching me? If you want to measure the level of your worship and your connection with God, measure it when you are by yourself. Your family is gone for the day, they're gone somewhere, you decide to stay home, you have exams, you're not feeling well, you have the whole house to yourself. It's you and the whole house. That feels great, right? The whole house. From noon all the way till 11 o'clock at night. So Zohar comes and goes, Maghrib and Isha comes and goes. Do you get up and pray salat the same way you got up and prayed salat when your parents were there, when your siblings were there? Right? When I travel, let's say for tabligh, and I'm in hotels or in people's homes, or sometimes people give me entire basements, or this whole house is yours, Malana, blah, 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 right? Fajr time comes and goes. Am I sleeping all the way through Fajr? Or like at home, I get up, I give the adhan, I wake up my kids, I put the Najaf clock on, blah, blah, blah. Am I doing all that the exact same way I'm doing in my hotel room or not? Those are tough questions. But that's the measure, guys. The measure of riyah is when you are alone, when no one's watching you. Are you the exact same way as opposed to here, hall is packed, Allahu Akbar. Lambi lambi qunut, mashallah. Long, long sajdas. Mashallah, bhai kya namaz hai yaar. That namaz is fantastic. At home, we're done namaz and the water from the wudu is not dry yet. Allah, Allah, we're done. Wrap it up, let's go, let's move on. Gotta measure that. Those are tough measures. Tough measures, okay? So are we like this? Are we somebody who has this addictive need of the approval of others? Is there a gaping hole inside of me? Am I expecting someone else to approve of me? They didn't, so I want to fill that hole with randos giving me approval. Ask yourself that tough question. And then if you identify that, yeah, you know what? I was somebody who needed that constant validation from my parents. I didn't get it because my parents didn't know. I come from a typical Karachi background. My parents were from Karachi. My dad wasn't a shabash beta kind of guy. He wasn't. He wasn't a way to go, son. Good job, pat on the back. The only time I got a hug from my dad was on the day of Eid, when everyone got a hug from my dad. I lined up like everybody else for my dad. I got a hug. Oh no, I got 3-1. Thanks, Dad. That's it. And waiting, but then I realized that that's all they knew. They didn't go to parenting courses when they were in Karachi. They weren't parenting seminars, right? The first Ashur topics weren't Tarbiyat Olad. No, Khaybar and Khandak and a little bit of Abu Talib. And that was their childhood. So you have to stop. I have to stop. It took me a long time. And you can see I'm still struggling with it. To really kind of sit there and say, okay, they did the best they could. Now my father has left this world. My mother is still there. So now I talk to my mom all the time. Ami, aapko yaad hai? Ami, do you remember? Ami, beta, of course, I remember. Now it's different, right? I'm a grown man, I have kids, I can talk to her openly. I can heal those scars. Go back and ask her, do you understand how hard it was? And she would say, yeah, of course we understood. Right? So anyway, so we have to kind of go through that process. It's hard, guys. But if we want to save ourselves from this ostentation, this riyah disease, that's part of the process. Okay? Questions? You guys are okay? Anybody? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Also professionally, we have to kind of tell others what
Correct. Correct.
so at this point, like, how do you diagnose yourself?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So in the world of academics, in the world of corporate, you have to sell yourself. So like you go into your meeting and say, look, Joe, I did this today. This was my weekly, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. I established this practice in this department. A lot of I's inside corporate. Academia world, you have to give a little bit of your biography. Okay? Like sometimes when people ask me for my biography, I don't like biographies. I don't, because there's a lot of I in there. He did this, he studied this, but sometimes you have to do that. You won't get very far in corporate or even academia unless you sell yourself. You gotta shut that off now and come into Deen where you have to learn to become anonymous. That's a struggle. And we'll get to that in a moment. When we talk about narcissism, why this need to control, right? So there is this fluctuating nature where I have to turn it on over here in my 9 to 5, but in my Maghrib Isha, I turn it off over here, right? To the point where, why is fasting such a beautiful act of worship? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that so you can become the pious ones, because fasting is a faceless act of worship. Right? In Salat, you're bending, in Hajj, you're going tawaf. In fast, you're not doing anything. Unless you have on your forehead, I am fasting, or you have a shirt, or you walk in and say, hello, I'm fasting. No one's asking you if you're fasting or not, bro. Just, right? Ramadan, right? So that's why, because it's a faceless act of worship. So that's a tough one, you're right. And that's why these are not easy. And that's why it's a process, the first one. And God rewards the process. I'll never forget the first time I got a math quiz back and I saw the fact that I got the answer wrong, but I got 3 out of 4 on the question. I'm like, huh? The answer was wrong. But she said, my teacher said, Asad, your process was right. But instead of minus, you put plus, and you messed up the last line. But I'm going to reward you for the process. You carried the 1, you brought down the 6, you did very well here. You just messed up in the plus and the minus. That's okay. I'm not going to throw the whole question out. I'll give you 3 out of 4. God's no different. He sees that you're struggling. Sometimes we slip, sometimes we want to wait for the good job, and we feel great about ourselves. But he sees that sometimes 1 step back, 2 steps forward. So yes. Yes, sister.
Sometimes, like, whenever we wanted to try to encourage people and you tell them that,
Yeah.
I have done this, you should do that, or something like that. So is it considered as a riyakar?
No, if you're encouraging others, that's you to them. This riyah is how they take it from you. Okay? So we have to encourage, right? If we see, for example, that a sister or brother has taken 1 tiny step towards Allah, you can see, for example, they've changed their social media profile, what they're posting, what they're sharing, or a little bit extra hair on his face, or the hijab is 1 pin tighter. When you acknowledge that, and sometimes maybe a little bit of encouragement, then it actually goes a long way, provided they know that I can actually gain respect and happiness if I continue to follow God's limits. So yeah, I mean, that's why it's a communal deen, right? That's why there's Amr bin Ma'ruf in the social structure, where sometimes we have to be, let's not be conjuice, or let's not be stingy with our words for other people. If you see the fact that, oh my God, this person went from this Dua Kumelo, this Surah Yasin to this Surah Yasin, like, oh my goodness, you've encouraged, you've improved so much. That's beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I know there's not an overnight pill, but what kind of baby steps do you recommend?
Yeah, so I'll get to that in a moment, inshallah. For sure. Yes.
So let's say you're practicing something and you have a friend or a family member and you're like, hey, I've been doing this. Maybe you should do it too to help you. What would you recommend?
But I'm not a fan of that. I'll tell you why. Because unless they're asking you, and it depends on how close you are with your friend, everyone has a different path to God. Okay? So The hadith says, as many breaths as there are in this universe, there are that many ways to God. Okay? So what worked for you may not work for others. Okay? Like sometimes in these workshops, I do them a lot up and down North America, I become very open with my audience. And I share stories that maybe I shouldn't share about my life with some of you guys. I do that just to make it relatable. My struggle for the past 20 years of my life has been my weight. It's my jihad. Okay? Everything else I think I've somewhat kind of got under control. My weight, I just can't do it. If you look at all of my YouTube videos, there's a lot of fluctuation on the minbar. Khair. So I always get people telling me, you should really just start doing this. Just start eating greens. I'm like, okay. And then they say, oh, every morning, boil some water, put some chia seeds, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of, every morning do that, and you watch, it'll melt off. Okay, thank you. What about you? Yeah, just, cut out the salt or this. I'm like, okay. And, of course, these are people who are skinny people, and I don't like skinny people. They bother me. As a nation, they bother me, yeah. They're just, like, why are you so skinny, man? Anyways, okay, right? So, but it just doesn't work. And afterwards, okay, look, that nuskha works for you. I know why you're doing it, because you want someone to feel the same way you feel. I get it. But if they're not up for it, because then the thing is that, okay, this guy just, they say, Juma, 8 din Musliman hua abhi tak, right? He just last week, this guy just became, now all of a sudden he's on the member, or hear me, do try this. So you don't want to come across as someone who's holier than thou. If it's somebody that you think might use it, that's okay, but think 10 times before you do that. Yeah. Because there are some guys that are on the edge, and if people like me or people like you that say, bro, you should try this, they'll say, you know what, this is exactly why I'm not going to try it, and run away, yeah. People are sensitive nowadays. It's a good point. Anybody else? Another hand here in the back? No, there wasn't. Okay? No? Excellent. Where's my clicker? Okay. Now, a little bit of philosophy. Follow me, please. You guys are a very smart community. A lot of great ulama come in and out of your community. These things should not be things that are hard for you to understand. Okay? Yeah, just quick story. First 10 days I was in Toronto. At my center, Al-Mahdi in Toronto, Asad came this year in Urdu. Okay? He comes almost every second or third year to my center. And so we were talking about, I went to, my majlis was before Maghrib, his was after Maghrib. So I spoke at the center I spoke at, and then I drove, and I caught his Urdu majlis. I benefit a lot from Asad I like his style, I like his, this and that. His stories, his little jabs here and there, I love them. So he asked me, okay, where are you going from here? I go, I'm going to Houston, then I'm going to blah, 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 this and that. And I'm going to Atlanta. He goes, Acha. He goes, where do you speak in Atlanta? I said, different centers, this and that. So I asked him, I said, what about you? He goes, I have one home in Atlanta. Acha, he goes, yeah, मैं सिर्फ Jafri का जाता हूँ मैं. I don't go anywhere else. He goes, yeah, सालों से मैं. I said, alhamdulillah, that's good. So mashallah, your zikr khair happened with me and Salih Hassan. So I said, okay, I'll tell him next time I see him. I had a whole workshop here, alhamdulillah. So a little bit of a higher discussion. What we want to do is we want to live a life now, and I need you guys here a little bit, is that we want to live a life where we are narrowing our focus down from the various aspects of our life into one. So we are going from plurals into one united front, okay? From khuruj min al-kathar ila al-wahda. The idea that everything I have, there is a portion of me that is, I am a student, I am a career guy, I am a parent, I am a spouse, I'm a child, I don't know, I volunteer, I serve, I'm at the committee at Jafri, I'm involved in this group. I have so many things where I'm spread out. We have to be able to not see them as individual separate units, but together now towards the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such that whether I am at school, online, at work, with my spouse, with my child, with my parent, with my community, I am always the same way. That ultimately is the life of Tawheed. It's very hard, very hard. Okay? But that's ultimately what we have to try to achieve in this world. Okay? We cannot just limit Allah to a mihrab, or limit Allah to a month of Ramadan, or limit Allah to Hajj or Ziyarat. We have to be able to find Allah in my 9 to 5, find Allah in my term paper, find Allah, let's say, playing ball with my child. Okay? And taking the various pluralities of my life and making them unified into one. That movement is very, very important. Okay? So small things like attaching a niyat to everything that you do. Making sure you stop and you think, why am I doing this? Being conscious of why you're doing it. Okay? And then finding God in everything that you do. As Imam Ali says, مَا رَأَيْتُ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا رَأَيْتُ اللَّهُ مَعَهُ قَبْلُهُ وَفِيهِ. I didn't see a single thing except that I saw Allah before it, in it, and after it. It's a beautiful statement. So those acts of worship that are ma'aruf, that are well known, then there are those acts you can convert into worship with your niyat. So again, these buzzwords nowadays, being mindful, being present, being woke, that these guys think they created, all that was back then when Allah says attach an attention to everything that you're doing. Don't be unconscious in your acts, guys. Be mindful in what you're doing. Okay? Stop and think, why am I doing this? Can I justify this? Blah, blah, blah. And you can find Allah almost everywhere. You really can. Right? If you are a little bit conscious of it. Okay? Bridging the gap between ilm and iman. Knowing up here and acting on your actual actions, sometimes is zamin asman. Huge difference. We know a lot, but if only people like me would act on what I know, we'd be somewhere else right now. So oftentimes I ask the crowd to do a little bit of a calculation, right? How many hours of majalis for Imam Hussein have you heard? Depending on how old you are, hundreds of hours. How much of that have we actually acted upon, right, is the key. Okay, assuming the alim has something to give. And I'm a staunch believer that every alim has something to give. Okay, I'm not a boycotting kind of guy, but that's up to you. Actions necessitates the humility of servitude. Let me see all is nothing, so I can only see you. What I mean by that is that what you want to get to is, I'll give you an example. You go to a outdoor carnival with your child. It's packed out. Okay, there's kids everywhere, and your kid has a pink jacket on. And there's so many pink jackets on, you have a tough time now seeing which one is my daughter. So you're freaking out, you're crying, you're screaming, where's my daughter? You're calling out her name. All you see is pink jackets, pink jackets. Imagine now if everyone had a white jacket on and your daughter had the pink on. You'd find her within a second. So if we're able to move everything out and see God in everything, He's easier to find. Right? Now, lifelong mission, no overnight pill, very hard to do, no doubt. But again, He's going to reward the process. We're not an all or nothing religion. We're not a go big or go home religion. God says if you take one step, I will reward you for it. You take one toe towards me, I'll respect that. 1 inch towards me, I will reward you for that. No problem. But you take that first step. Okay? So it's not all about what I know, it's about what I do with that knowledge. Right? فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ Surah Jummah. Allah will then give you and tell you what you've done in this world, not what you know in this world. Okay? Questions about that so far? How are we doing? 5 minutes and we take a break. You guys are losing speed on me. Last hadith and then we'll take a break. Okay? Again, a lot of words. What I really want to get to is this portion right here. Okay? So a person who performs good deeds, but not for the sake of being blessed with the vision of his God, his acts are aimed at being considered as pious by the people. Okay? No problem. And he wishes that people should know about his deeds. Such a person is counted amongst the mushrikeen, who've ascribed partners to God. You've taken worship that's only faqat for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you've made it for the people. Now, the Imam continued. This is a massive statement I want you to digest. Okay? He says, there is none in the world who has concealed their good deeds, and after passage of time, God has not revealed them. At the same time, there is none in the world who could conceal their wicked deeds forever, for they were exposed by God before they passed away from this world. 2 main points, and then we'll take a break. Number 1 is that if you want respect from when it comes to your deeds, leave it in the hands of God. He's saying it's impossible that you do something good, but no one saw me, Maulana. I came here in Jaffari, nobody was here, I vacuumed the carpet. Everyone saw the carpet marks, but no one actually saw me doing the vacuuming. How do people know? Was the camera on? I hope not, that's kind of creepy, but no one knows. So how do I tell people now? You come home, you come in the evening to the majlis, and you find, oh my God, people are raving about how clean the carpet is. I wonder which angel came and did vacuum of the carpet, and you're dying inside. It was me, please, right? And we think, oh my God, nobody will ever know. God's saying it's impossible that you do everything you can to make yourself anonymous. I'll make yourself known. Leave it with me. Leave it with me. Don't take it into your own hands. Because there's nothing sometimes more obnoxious than someone who sits there and presents every deed that they do. After a while, we'll talk about that. It's a lonely place to be sometimes. The Jabbi Deko, he talks about himself, man. I did this, I did that, I did, okay, all right. We also do things as well. God's like, leave it with me. At the same time, there are some people in your life who are toxic, with a capital toxic. And you think, is anyone seeing what they're doing to me? People who make these, passive-aggressive comments. People who make these little pinching remarks. When they're in the same room as me, I have this pit in my stomach. I actually call up people and say, thank you for your invitation for dinner. Is so-and-so going to be there? Or sometimes I ask, true story, when people invite me for dinner, I call back and I ask them, who else did you invite? I have no business asking that question, but I do sometimes. If I know that person who's my trigger person is there, I have to sit there and through breathing exercises, get myself ready to put some clothes on, drive there, and face this person for an entire night through salad, through halim, and through kheer. And I can't do it. It's a lot. So I'm like, is this night over yet? Does anyone see them? And God says, I see them. They won't get away with it. In this very dunya, what goes around comes around. You can't walk around having, no lagam, they say, on your tongue. No sort of control on your tongue. Say whatever you want. There are people that when they open their mouth, people run for cover. You can't live a life like that and think that you won't feel the effects of it in this world. God says, I promise you, the same way I will sit there and elevate your good deeds, I'll expose your bad ones, I'm sorry, if you're not conscious of what you're doing. You can't go around hurting people, man. You can't think you're going to get away with it. But leave it to God. Enjoy your high station. Move away. Walk away. Take the higher road, which is so hard to do. You want dust bater right back to them. You do want those things. Trust me. But you have to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This statement is powerful, guys. There's no one in this world who's concealed their good deeds. Allah says, I'll reveal them for you. And that's unheard of nowadays, right? It's all this idea of this presentation, right? Tell the whole world what you've done. If you don't tell them, who will? God says, I will. And I'll do it 10 times better than you ever could. Just do it anonymously. And that's where that switch turns off and on, right? From your academia to your corporate world, where you have to sell yourself, to God, where you're quietly doing things. And the quieter you are for Him, the louder He is for you. You got to believe that about God, right? We have to have a little bit of that belief in God. Where He'll take care of my izzat, as long as I'm what? I'm sincere in that. Okay? Any questions? That's our Riyadh talk. We'll move on to narcissism after our break, inshallah. Questions? We have about 2 minutes left. Yes? Oh. No, because even that 9 to 5 is for God, right? I know that you can really make it all about God, that if I can get this promotion, I can feed my family better. Give them a bigger house. But to get that promotion, I have to say, look, Jim, I did this. I established this. Right? Because there are some people in the corporate, you guys know better than I do, they have really worked the system. They do nothing all day, but somehow they're always on that list of short candidates. They go to every party, they share a cigarette, they laugh at corny jokes, and they get on the list of short candidates. Meanwhile, you're quiet doing your work like a masoom bacha, quiet doing your work. No one knows it, and you're quiet because my God says be quiet. Meanwhile, you're always overlooked for a promotion. Sometimes you gotta sell yourself. Sometimes you gotta sell yourself. In corporate academia, when it comes to God, let Him sell you. Let him sell you. He'll do it like nobody else will do it. Absolutely. Right? Everybody will know that she vacuumed the carpet. There'll be a plaque, there'll be a certificate, there'll be a whole thing. Just let it be. Let it be. Inshallah. Any questions? Please say two things. We are absolutely. The camera has to be on though, sister. Camera has to be on though. We don't need validation, but then why do we search validation? It's,
Because I'm a teacher,
yeah.
and when I have the younger children coming in,
Yeah.
they look at me while they do something.
Yes.
And I said, I'm making a happy face for you here. Whose face is that? He said, it's yours. He said, no, it's not mine, it's yours.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
So from teaching the little kids
Yeah.
at a younger age, that, some praising them to when they're doing good stuff.
Yeah.
And non-validating stuff which they're not.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's an idea to non-validating anybody else,
Yeah.
self-validation.
Absolutely. I wish we can self-validate, but we're too hard on ourselves, unfortunately. And self-love and self-compassion is a whole different workshop, inshallah, one day, someday. Great point. Thank you, Sister Friday.
Thank you all for your input, your discussions, and for the Syed, can we get a salawat, please?
It's not over. Don't go home. It's not over yet, please. We're still here. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, men can exit through the small door over there. Ladies can exit through the double doors. We have ice cream that's melting, so if we can get out there, get some ice cream and some tea and snacks, inshallah. And the break ends in 15 minutes sharp. 15 minutes.
Please, 15 minutes sharp, please. I will start
5:45.
after 15 minutes. Yes, thank you. Oh, really? Alhamdulillah.